Good morning. So today I thought we'd do a different block. This is got a little 4-patch in the corner, which we're going to do. It's got a fussy cut in the middle and 4 solid pieces. There's also an alternate to this block, which I will show you at the end. Okay, first things first, I'm going to put this out of the way here. I have a piece of fabric here that I have not fussy cut yet. I'm going to set that to the side, and we're going to need 4 pieces of our background fabric that we will set to the side. These are 5-inch squares. We're going to cut them down, so don't worry. I'm using 5-inch squares because that's a standard charm pack size. Okay, and then we're going to use 2 of our background fabrics and 2 accent fabrics. You want to contrast between them so that they'll show up nicely. What we're going to do is we're going to put these right sides together, and we are going to sew down this side and then down this side on each one a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So just line your edges up. I hope you had a nice Thanksgiving. We did. We were going to have some company over, but they got sick with the flu, and so we took the food over to them and left it on their porch for them to come and get. Okay. Now, something you may notice, I'm chain stitching these together, which means that I'm running one right through the machine after the other, and that helps save on thread. You may notice that there's like a pinked edge on some of your charm pack blocks and your pre-cuts, and that's okay. You want to, this is cut exactly 5 inches, so you want to line up that pinked edge with the outside of the pink to the edge of your block. Okay, you'll see that that's kind of the way it is all the way around, and that will help you get an accurate bit of piecing. They're generally cut with a die cutter when they're cutting them at the factories, and so sometimes they're not always perfectly accurate, but they're pretty darn close enough. Okay, we have sewed down both sides. I've got my little thread bunny here. I'm going to put that through. Okay. I'm sewing on my little Singer featherweight again today. You know I love it. Okay, this is a 2.5 inch. Any kind of 2.5 inch ruler will work. It doesn't have to be 2.5 inches wide, but you want to be able to get that measurement. We're going to cut those in half, and when you fold them out, you should have this, okay? And we're going to just finger press that to the dark fabric, okay? So the seam on the back is heading to the dark fabric. Do that on both of these. And we're gonna trim this one as well. I'll use a different ruler just to show you. This is a 5.5 inch Creative Grids ruler, which I like. You can measure 1/2 inches or whole inches on it, depending upon which way you turn it. So I've got 2.5 inches here and over. We know that 2.5 inches is 1/2 of 5. So there we go. We're going to just finger press that open. Oh, kitties. I got the 2 girls playing with me today down here. Come on, don't growl. The old girl doesn't like the young one. Okay, we're going to take and do our magic 4-patch again. We're going to put right sides together, and we're going to nest that seam I'm going to take a little pin and I'm going to tuck the pin on the side of the seam, not in the seam, not in the stitching, okay? So it's going to go right to the side. And now I'm going to stitch down this edge. I'm going to do the same thing with this one. As you know, these, if you've been following us, these tutorials are for people that are just learning how to quilt. And we are going to be going slow and methodical through the process. And that is because sometimes people need to see it a couple of times before they get the technique. There we go. Now we've stitched down that side. I'm going to take my thread bunny and feed it through. And we're going to clip these apart. Now, you can see that's created the little 4-patch center there. Now we're going to do the same thing on this other side. I want you to nest your seams. You should be able to feel, because we pressed them going the same way, so they're, when you put them together, they're going opposite directions. And tuck your pin in. Now you don't have to pin it. If you're a more experienced quilter, you'll be able to feel that, and you don't have to pin it. But for a new quilter, we want to make sure that they're putting that pin in so that they get a nice, precise point where we want it. And if you're not sure, you can roll back the fabric and you can check it. Okay? Just tuck it in there. You should be able to feel those hooked together, kind of. They'll nest up against each other. Okay, we'll take our little thread bunny again. And we're going to put them right here. And there we go. Okay. So we've got those stitched together on the sides. You should have what looks like a tube right now, okay? And we're going to set that down and we're going to cut 2.5 inches, which is half of the 5-inch square that we have. Okay, set those aside and we'll cut this one. 2.5 inches. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and we are going to spin our seam on the back. So you just pull that open. Sometimes you may have to clip a couple threads there. It's okay. On this one, we're not needing to do that. And then if you just press that in the middle with your finger, then you can go ahead and finger press, and those seams will rotate. They'll rotate around the back, just like that. See? Okay. We're going to do the same thing with all 4 of these. Whichever direction, you just pull that seam open, squeeze it with your finger, turn the fabric over and finger press it, okay? And there you go. You should have a nice little 4-patch in the middle there. I'm going to press that a little bit more. And we'll hit those with the iron after, just to make sure they're nice and smooth. Pull that open. You can see those little bits of thread there. You can snip them if you need to. Okay. And again, we have a nice spun seam on the back. What does the spun seam do? Okay, so when you're quilting, it just removes some of that excess fabric in that seam so that you have a nice flat seam when you go to quilt it. Oops, I'm gonna get that over there. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna set these aside for a second and just give them a little press on the iron over here. real quick. So anyway, I cooked the big turkey dinner yesterday, and then we packaged it all up, so I felt like I served 2 dinners, but that's okay. All right, now the next thing we're going to do, we're going to set those aside right there. We are going to trim this inside block. Before we do that, we're going to take our 4-patch and we're going to measure. It should come out to 4.5 inches, and it does. It's 4.5 inches. And you'll remember, if you've watched our other videos, I use this tape, Clover's tape, and I tape on the back of my ruler just like that, so that I can see easily what I'm looking for as far as the dimension. Okay, now, okay, so 4.5 is going to be 2 1/4, so I'm looking for a 2 1/4 measurement. So I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to go 2 1/4. Let's see how I want to do that. I think that's good. I kind of want my bird to be in the center of my 4.5 inch block here. So we're going to cut this center piece of fabric to measure 4.5 inches. Okay. So I've got that side. Now I'm going to flip this around. And I'm going to go right there. Line that 4.5 edge up carefully. And we're going to just trim that off. Okay. That's pretty good. All right, now we've trimmed our centerpiece and we have our 4 patches. I'm going to set those aside. And we're going to take these, I'm going to take them 2 at a time. I'm going to stack them on top of each other. And I'm going to trim this down to 4.5 inches. Okay. Now, if you're cutting fabric for this, you can just go ahead and cut it at 4.5 inches to begin with. You're going to need 5 inches for your 4-patch blocks. So if you want to use a background and a solid fabric that is 5 inches for your 4-patch blocks, and the rest of the pieces for our quilt block can measure 4.5 inches if you're cutting them. If you're using a charm pack, it's going to measure 5 inches. You just will want to cut that down if you're using, a pre-cut. I did not get that whole one cut there, so let's go ahead and fix that real quick. There we go. I don't have the leverage when I'm sitting down like I do when I'm standing up. I also made some blocks the other day, and these are, instead of the 4-patch, you would just stitch your pieces together initially and then cut them and leave them like this. And I'm going to show you how that finishes out in the block as an option. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 background pieces, okay? 4 background pieces. We're going to have our center fussy cut fabric, whatever that is, whatever you desire. And then we've got our pieces that are the 4 patches that are going to go like this. Now, you can do a couple things here. And get that closed and out of the way. You can turn them like this if you want to have something that looks like this. Okay. Or you can take these out. Let's get rid of our 4 patches. We're going to move these to the corner. And by using this block that we created before, which is just the 2 pieces stitched together and cut, I'm going to put this one on the top here, and cut the first time. Okay, and we're going to make what you'll see is like a plus here. Okay. Okay. So can you see that plus that's going? So that's a completely different block look. Okay. Take these solid pieces out. These are just all options for things that you can do with little components, okay? And we'll put this in here like this. And this is going to give you a completely different look. Okay, you see that? And then you can turn these and you can have a completely different look. There you go. So there's lots of things that you can do with just some simple components when you're quilting. What I'm going to do with this is I'm going to take these out. We'll save these for another block. And I'm going to turn my pieces in. And I've got my 4 solid pieces that will go just like this. Now, this is going to give you the option to do several things, okay? When you're stitching this into a quilt, if you were going to make a quilt block with this, you're going to have an effect that looks like this, an X of color that's going across on your background. When you put several of these blocks together, whether you decide to sash them or not, it's going to give you kind of an Irish chain effect. If you had one of these right in the middle and this going across, you could see that chain would carry through. We're putting 1 solid piece in the middle. You're still going to get that chain effect when you have several blocks put together and you stand back and look at it. So now we're going to sew this together. We're going to flip this over like this. Always lay your quilt block out on your table or your mat next to your machine so that you can see exactly what you're doing and that you have your pieces lined out properly. And I just am going to chain piece these right through the machine like that. And we're going to go like this. And that'll be our last piece there. Okay, let me get my little thread bunny again. If you're going to do a lot of chain piecing, they have these wonderful little gizmos here that you can put your old rotary blades in and just clip things apart. If you had a lot of chain piecing that you were doing, that would be a nice stocking stuffer. Okay, now we're going to open this up and we're going to press toward the shiny fabric, towards our background squares, okay? So finger press that towards the background fabric there. And this is going to go from the 4-patch to the background fabric, and from the 4-patch to the background fabric. Okay. If you are an experienced quilter, you can just speed through this, and I'm sure you're going to understand exactly what you need to do. Okay, so make sure again that you have your 4 patches lined up the way you want them. Some people like to chain piece and keep everything together as they do it. I don't care to do that. That's just my personal preference. You can do what works for you. Now I'm going to flip these over on top and we're going to stitch these down, okay? I love these little featherweight sewing machines. They just are such a gem for a quilter, and I have 3 of them. One is upstairs that I take to Monday Fun Day with me down at Daydreams, and one is at the other end of the studio here that I sew on, and I pulled this one out the other day because I needed to make sure it was oiled up, and it's good to use them. Don't let them sit. They're not just pretty to look at. Okay, I'll get my little thread bunny, put him back through. Okay. All right, and then just snip those little threads. And then again, we are going to finger press to the solid background fabric, okay? That's our top piece. Finger press to the solid background fabric. I know mine's glittery. This is a Michael Miller Fairy Frost, and I just love that in Christmas quilts. It's sparkly and just really pretty, I think. It's not a soft fabric, so if you're looking for something soft, I probably wouldn't use it, but it is pretty. Okay, there we go. We are ready now to stitch these components together. We're going to go like that, put the top down, and we are going to put our corners together. Nest your corner, tuck a pin in the side. We're going to nest this seam together. You'll be able to feel that press together. Put your pin in the side, and we're ready to go ahead and stitch this together. Line your ends up, 1/4 inch seam allowance, and there we go. I just love the sound of these machines. They're so pretty. They're pretty and they feel good to sew on as well. They just have a nice way about them. Okay. All right, now we're going to finger press this towards our center block, okay? So that seam is going to go down towards this block. I'm going to flip this one up and over. We're going to nest these again and tuck a pin in the side of them. Go ahead and tuck a pin in the side. And we will go ahead and feed that through. I want to just make sure that's underneath there the way it needs to be. Okay. Now, a couple things. If you have trouble keeping your 1/4 inch lined up, you can get a little sew type magnet and just pop it right on there on your 1/4 inch. And as you sew, you can use that as a point to control your stitching, okay? They are magnetic. They also have a tape. Let me grab this tape out of my drawer here, and I will share it with you. I never put tape on this particular machine because it is vintage and you have decals on it that are antique. I don't put tape on these machines ever, but there's a tape you can get and you can feed it in and it'll give you that 1/4 inch and you can just follow that if you need to. So those are options. Okay, again, finger pressing towards the center, And there is our block. Let me just give this a quick press over here, and we will see what it looks like. This is the previous block that we did, and you can see that. Again, remember we had 2 pieces that were solid that we put together on the sides, and then we cut directly in half, and that gave us this piece, which gave us the option to do the X or the plus that's in the center of the quilt if you want to do something like that. Okay, there are so many things that you can do with this, and you'll have so much fun making them. If you want to make a table topper out of it, you can just bind it the way it is, or you could put the star points on it like we've done in the other videos. You'll want to reference that video if you want to know how to do that. And there we go. So we have a couple. Now you can see as you line these up how that design is going to carry on through the quilt. Okay, if you want to make a table topper with these, you could use them singly, or you can put them together as a table runner. You could put 3, would be nice, 3 or 4 depending upon the size of your table. You could put sashing in between if you wanted, or without. If you put sashing in between, I would use a cornerstone right here so that you carry that design all the way through. So there you have it. I hope that was fun for you today, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.